The content of which you're about to hear might be unsuitable for those of a young age, and some may find the content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. With that out the way, I want to welcome you to Unexplained Possibilities Top 10 Demonic Possessions. I'm Melvin the Crimson Taurus, and let's begin. Coming in at number 10 is Clara Germana Seeley. In 1906, Clara Germana Seeley was a Christian student at St. Michael's Mission in Natal, South Africa. At the age of 16, Clara prayed and allegedly made a pact with Satan. Several days later after making this pact, Clara was overtaken by strange impulse. She was repulsed by religious artifacts such as crucifixes. She could speak and understand several languages of which she had no previous knowledge of, one of them being Latin. And she became clairvoyant regarding the thoughts and history of the people around her. The nuns who attended to Clara reported that she made horrible animalistic sounds. One nun even said, "No animal had ever made such sounds, neither the lions of East Africa nor the angry bulls. At times it sounded like a veritable herd of wild beasts orchestrated by Satan had formed a demonic choir." Clara also levitated up to 5 feet in the air. 2 priests were brought in to perform an exorcism on Clara, which resulted in one priest being strangled. It's said that 170 people witnessed Clara levitating as the priest read scripture to drive the demons out of her. The exorcism lasted 2 days and was a success. According to priests, the demon possessing Clara Germana Seeley was sent back to the underworld. Not all exorcisms are successful, as is the case with number 9, Annalise Michelle. Annalise Michelle is a controversial and popular case, namely due to her tragic story being the influence of 2005 film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. 16-year-old Annalise had a history of epilepsy and mental illness for which she had been treated at a psychiatric hospital. However, in 1973, Annalise became suicidal, spurned all religious artifacts, drank her own urine, and began to hear voices. Medicine did nothing to help Annalise, who begged her family to bring in a priest because she believed that she was possessed by demons. The request was rejected. However, in secret, 2 local priests began treating her with exorcism rites. While this was occurring, Annalise's parents stopped treating her epilepsy and mental disorders. Within a year, Annalise had passed away. Annalise had almost 70 exorcisms performed on her over the course of 10 months. Annalise refused to eat and often talked of dying as a martyr. Annalise died in her home from emaciation and starvation. She weighed just 68 pounds, suffering broken knees due to continuous genuflections. She was unable to move without assistance and was reported to have contracted pneumonia. In 1976, the state charged Annalise's parents and priests Ernest Alt and Arnold Renz with negligent homicide. During the case, Annalise's body was exhumed and tapes were played to the court of the exorcisms over the 10-month period which led to her death. The state recommended that no involved parties be jailed. Instead, prosecutors' recommended sentence for the priest was a fine and concluded that the parents should be exempt from punishment as they had suffered enough. The accused were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which was later suspended, and 3 years of probation. At number 8 is a person simply known as Julia. In 2008, Dr. Richard E. Gallagher, a psychiatrist and associate professor of clinical psychiatry at New York Medical College, spoke about a case of a demonic possession of a patient only known as Julia. The diagnosis of demonic possession is rare and uncommon among medical professionals who often claim the symptoms of this to be caused by various mental illnesses. Observations Dr. Gallagher made about Julia are that the tone of her voice would change drastically, sometimes sounding guttural and masculine, while other times it would sound high-pitched. Julia would speak in tongues or languages she had no previous knowledge of, levitate off the bed, cause objects to fly around the room, and would somehow know and reveal personal knowledge about various staff in the room. Julia displays no signs of mental illness, and the psychiatrists that have studied her have even called in a priest to perform an exorcism. This so far has proven to bother the entity that allegedly possesses Julia, with the entity telling members that they'll be sorry for their actions. To this very day, Julia continues to display signs of possession, leaving psychiatrists baffled by her condition. At number 7 is Arn Cheyenne Johnson. One of the most notable cases of possession in United States history occurred in 1980 Connecticut. The defense lawyers representing Arn Cheyenne Johnson tried to use demonic possession as a defense that would lead to an acquittal. The story behind this involves the possession of an 11-year-old boy, David Glatziel, who was living with Arn Cheyenne Johnson. David began showing classic signs of demonic possession, such as hearing voices, strange marks appearing on his body, and seeing visions of a strange creature in the house. Scratches began appearing on the front door on the home to coincide with David's visions. Demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, accompanied by a priest, were brought in to exorcise the demon that possessed David. However, this was only the beginning of the family's problems with said demon. The exorcised demon, once free of David, began possessing Arn. On February 16, 1981, Arn, possessed by the entity, attacked the family's landlord, stabbing him numerous times with a pocket knife while growling like an animal. During the trial, Arn's lawyer claimed that Arn couldn't be held responsible for the actions he committed while being possessed. Unfortunately, this argument didn't hold up in court. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over the course of 3 days before convicting Johnson on November 24, 1981, of first-degree manslaughter. Arn was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5. David Berkowitz, also known as the self-proclaimed Son of Sam, is number 6. David Berkowitz was one of the most ruthless serial killers in the United States. Berkowitz's murder spree started in 1976 and continued for a year before he was caught by the police. The murders were all eerily similar. Berkowitz would approach his victims at night, shoot them with a .44 revolver, and leave without saying a word. At one of the shootings, Berkowitz left a note for the police, which spoke of Father Sam, who drinks blood, and commands him to go out and kill. Upon being caught, information about Berkowitz's real-life father, who was named Tony, came out. This had people questioning who Sam was. According to Berkowitz, Sam was the demon who had possessed his neighbor's dog. When Berkowitz was arrested in 1977, he gave a full confession, claiming that the dog spoke to him and told him to kill someone. Berkowitz would sometimes call Sam a demon. Other times, he said Sam was the spirit of an evil man who had lived 6,000 years ago. In the number 5 spot is Anna Eckland. Anna Eckland was a young girl from Iowa who was raised as a devout Catholic. It was said, however, that her father and aunt were practitioners of witchcraft, and they had cursed Anna for reasons unknown. At 14 years of age, Anna began showing signs of demonic possession, including fear of religious artifacts and the inability to enter a church. Anna's first exorcism, which took place in 1912, was said to have cured her, but shortly after, Anna became possessed again, but by multiple entities this time. The entities claimed to be the same spirits who had possessed Annalise Michelle. After many attempts to exorcise the spirits over the years, Anna was placed in a coven with hopes of curing her condition. However, Anna continued to display signs of possession, such as speaking in tongues and strange voices, levitating and clinging to the walls of her room. After 16 years and many exorcisms, Anna was finally cured and was able to leave the coven at age 30. George Luckins was a man who claimed to be possessed by 7 demons that could only be removed by 7 priests, and that's why he's at number 4 on the list. George Luckins' exorcism quickly became one of the most infamous accounts of the 18th century. Luckins' condition was first noticed by a woman, Sarah Barber, who sent a letter to a local priest pleading and begging for him to come and examine her childhood friend. The letter stated that the past 18 years, Luckins had slowly deteriorated both mentally and physically, breaking down into seizures and growling at people around him. As the years went on, the fits grew worse and took on an unnatural tone. He declares in a roaring voice that he is the devil, who with many horrid exactions summons about him certain persons devoted to his will and commands them to torture this unhappy patient with all the diabolical means in their power, Sarah claimed. On June 13, 1778, 7 priests were rounded up and began an exorcism at the Temple Church in Bristol, England. The priests opened the exorcism by singing hymns, and according to reports, George Luckins fell into a violent rage, barking and hissing at the men before shouting that his torment of George Luckins would be 1,000 times worse for trying such a stupid thing as an exorcism. Following that outburst, 7 demonic personalities surfaced. The different personalities would cycle around, and at the end of which he yelled that he was the devil himself. According to accounts, the demons were all sent back to the underworld. At number 3 is Michael Taylor. In 1974, Michael Taylor's wife, Christine, stated to a Christian fellowship group to which Michael belonged that his relationship with the leader of the group, Marie Robinson, was carnal in nature. Michael admitted that he didn't feel right and felt evil within him. Michael eventually attacked Marie Robinson verbally, who screamed back at him in reaction. During the next meeting, Michael received an absolution, but his behavior continued to become more erratic and strange. As a result, the vicar called in other ministers experienced in deliverance and preparation to cast out the demons which they believed to be residing within Michael. The exorcism took place at St. Thames Church in Barnsley and was headed by Father Peter Vincent, Anglican priest of St. Thames in Galway. Father Peter Vincent was aided by a Methodist clergyman, the Reverend Raymond Smith. According to Bill Ellis, an authority on folklore and the occult in contemporary culture, the exorcists believed that they had, in an all-night ceremony, invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy, and lewdness. The exorcism lasted until 6 a.m. The priests, who were exhausted, allowed for Michael to return home. However, they cautioned that although they had cast out 40 spirits from Michael, a few remained, including the demon of murder. Aiding to the mystery of all this is the fact that Michael Taylor would later murder his wife, Christine. Michael attacked her with his bare hands, tearing her eyes and tongue out and almost tearing her face off, then strangling their poodle. Michael was found by a policeman, naked in the street covered with blood. At his trial in March, Taylor was acquitted on the grounds of insanity. Michael was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years, then spent another 2 years in a secure ward in Bradford before being released. At number 2 on the list is the Perron family. In 1971, the Perron family moved into their new home in rural Burrowville, Rhode Island, a farmhouse built in the 18th century. It was the start of a new life for the Perrons and their 5 young daughters. However, things did not go the way they were expected to. After several nights in the farmhouse, Carolyn Perron, the mother, awoke to an image of an old woman hung by the neck from the bedroom ceiling. The next several weeks, the family reported strange sounds that came from the crawl space and cellar of the house. Doors would somehow open themselves and then slam shut, and food would even sweat blood. With the help of paranormal investigators, the parents discovered that a witch practicing in the 18th century had sacrificed her child to Satan. This act opened the house to the devil, and shortly after this event, the woman then hung herself. The Perrons believed that the witch's ghost, as well as a myriad of demons and the ghosts of further suicides on the property, were haunting them. One of their daughters, Andrea Perron, now in her 50s, still says that the story is 100% completely true, and that her mother even became possessed at one point. She says, "The only time I was truly terrified in that house was the night I thought I saw my mother die." She spoke in a voice we had never heard before, and a power not of this world threw her 20 feet into another room. The attempts to exorcise Carolyn of the demon that had hold of her all ended in failure. The Perron story later would become the inspiration for the film The Conjuring, but the film doesn't tell the whole story. After Carolyn was possessed, the family stayed in the house for about 9 more years and learned to live with the spirits. Known as the story behind the novel and film The Exorcist, this story of 14-year-old Roland O is one of the most notorious, documented, and widely known incidents of demonic possession. Because of the events that took place, the Catholic Church thought it wise to give a pseudonym to the person we know today as Roland O in order to preserve his privacy. And that's why Roland O is number 1 on the list. In the late 1940s, Roland O's aunt encouraged him to use a Ouija board. Many have speculated because of this encouragement, it led Roland to using a board in an attempt to contact his aunt after her death. This very act seems to have opened a door for demons who wanted to enter our world and subsequently possess Roland. The possession started with strange sounds, like dripping water that no one could place. Eventually, religious artifacts began to shake and fly off the walls, and unexplained footsteps and scratching noises could be heard around the home. Scratches began to appear on Roland's body, including words that seemed to have been carved into his skin by unseen claws. Roland also spoke in tongues, a guttural voice, and levitated in the air with his body contorted in pain. These are now considered classic signs of demonic possession. Roland's family brought in a Catholic priest who believed that Roland was possessed by evil spirits and needed an exorcism. During the exorcism, Roland allegedly slipped one of his hands out of the restraints, broke a bed spring from under the mattress, and used it as a weapon, deeply cutting the priest's arm and bringing an immediate halt to the exorcism ritual. The family traveled to St. Louis, where Roland's cousin contacted one of his professors at St. Louis University, Raymond J. Bishop, who in turn spoke to William S. Bouldern, an associate of College Church. Together, both priests visited Roland, who was staying at a relative's home, where they allegedly saw the now classic signs of possession. Bouldern was granted permission from the Archbishop to perform another exorcism. This exorcism took place at the Alexian Brothers Hospital in South St. Louis, Missouri. Before the next exorcism ritual began, another priest, Walter Halloran, was called to the psychiatric wing of the hospital, where he was asked to assist Bouldern. William Van Roe, a third Jesuit priest, was also there to assist. Halloran stated that during the scene, words such as evil, devil, die, along with other various marks, appeared on Roland's body. Accounts allege during one portion of the exorcism ritual, Roland's mattress began to shake. The exorcism was performed over 30 times, with Roland injuring the priest many times throughout, and even breaking Halloran's nose. Eventually, the rite was successful, and the entire hospital heard Roland's cries of bestial anguish and reported a horrible sulfuric odor hanging in the air at the end of the exorcism. Halloran, years later, would tell a reporter that Roland went on to live a rather ordinary life. If you like this top 10, be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. If you have a suggestion for a future top 10 list, be sure to let us know in the comment section below or tell us on Facebook or Twitter, and those links can be found in the description box. Thanks for checking out Unexplained Possibilities Top 10 Demonic Possessions, and we'll catch you next time.